is the process of revolution of our infrastructures which began. This is what led to the creation of this initiative. Yeah. Here is in the West or elsewhere, in small countries that have no resources.
Burkina Faso is not the richest country in Africa. It is not the safest either. Yet today, many see it as the most fascinating nation on the continent. And the reason has nothing to do with wealth or security. It has everything to do with one simple truth. Here, the people's voice truly matters. That is the great irony. Across Africa, so many nations claim to be democratic. Civilian rulers are elected through ballots. Parliaments are filled with politicians, and constitutions promise freedom. But in reality, citizens often feel powerless, ignored, and betrayed. In Burkina Faso, however, under the rule of a young military leader, the story has taken a shocking turn. The people are speaking loudly, and their message is crystal clear. They don't want to return to civilian politics. They don't want the old system of corruption and broken promises. If they had their way, they would keep Captain Ibrahim Traoré in power for as long as possible. And so, the question rises. How did a country under military rule become, in the eyes of its people, more democratic than those run by elected governments? Why are Burkinabe citizens rejecting the very idea of democracy itself? To understand this, we must go deeper. Recently, President Ibrahim Traoré launched a project in Burkina Faso known as Faso Mayabbo. At first glance, it may look like just another development initiative, but in reality, it's something far bigger. Faso Mayabbo is rewriting the rules of nation building and igniting a wave of patriotism across the country. For many Burkinabe citizens, this project has been a revelation. It has shown them what it feels like to have a leader who is truly on their side. It has reshaped how they see politics, and it's one of the key reasons why so many now reject the return of democracy, civilian rulers, and career politicians. But what exactly is Faso Mayabbo? It's not just a project, it's a movement. The heartbeat of a nation choosing to stand on its own feet. A call for every citizen, men, women, children, even the differently abled and students on holiday, to pick up tools and take part in building the future of their country. In Faso Mayabbo, there are no spectators. Everyone is a builder. Everyone is responsible for the legacy they leave behind. At the center of this movement is Traoré himself, a man defined by principles. He has always believed that true growth cannot come from outside forces, but only from the hands of the people themselves. That belief is what drove him to expel French forces and focus on strengthening the Burkinabe military. And in October 2024, he carried that same philosophy into the economy with the launch of Faso Mayabbo. At the heart of Faso Mayabbo lies a simple but urgent problem. Burkina Faso has nearly 15,000 kilometers of roads, and only about 4,000 are paved. For decades, private companies controlled road construction, charging between 500 million and 1 billion CFA francs per kilometer. The result? Development stalled, and the people paid the price. President Traoré decided to flip the script. With Faso Mayabbo, which means let's build the nation, he launched a new vision built on two powerful pillars. First, redeveloping rural arteries with the ambitious goal of paving 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers every year. Second, transforming urban centers, adding sidewalks, green spaces, and decent housing to give cities back their dignity. The scale was staggering. The government purchased more than 1,000 machines at once, bulldozers, mixers, graders, flatbeds, arming the nation with the tools of its own rebirth. The price tag? 200 billion CFA francs. But here's the twist. Every cent came from national resources. No foreign loans, no outside conditions. And then, something extraordinary happened. Traoré didn't just build for the people, he invited them in. He opened the doors for citizens to invest directly in Faso Mayabbo. And the people answered. From market women to soldiers, from civil servants to school teachers, Burkinabe citizens put their modest savings into the project. In Kaya, a group of 118 children, aged just 7 to 15, sacrificed their pocket money to buy 5 bags of cement for Faso Mayabbo. It was a small gesture, but it carried a powerful message. Love for the country runs deeper than any holiday, any toy, or any sweet. And it wasn't just money. People themselves began to work, hands in the dirt, shoulders under the sun, helping to pave the very roads that would carry them into a different future. Across villages and cities, something remarkable is unfolding. People of every age, every background, and every ability have set aside excuses and picked up tools. School children spend their breaks not on leisure, but on road crews. Men on crutches and wheelchair users work shoulder to shoulder with farmers and soldiers. No one is left out. There is no division here, only one mission, shared by all. It almost sounds like fiction, a fairy tale, but it is real. This is the heartbeat of Burkina Faso today. From Ouagadougou to Bobo Dioulasso, you don't just see the initiative, you hear it. The grind of cement mixers, the clang of pickaxes, the thunder of heavy machinery rolling across the land. Students set paving stones to the rhythm of djembe drums. Women, with basins balanced on their heads, carry water to the work sites. Soldiers, their uniforms stained with cement, labor hand in hand with civilians. Even the trucks add to the rhythm, blaring horns like drum beats summoning entire communities to action. And this is not theater for the cameras. These are lasting changes you can measure with your own feet. Roads now snake deep into villages that once waited weeks for a single delivery. Sidewalks and gardens rise in cities that once surrendered every corner to dust and despair. This is not just construction, it is transformation. A nation building itself, one stone, one road, one act of unity at a time. Every shovel of sand has become a declaration. We reject pity. We embrace self-determination. Each road laid is not just asphalt. It is sovereignty, reclaimed inch by inch. The cement is local. The machines are owned by the people. And the labor? For many, it comes after a long day's work, freely given, because the dream of independence is worth the sweat. In every strike of a hammer, in every shovelful of mortar, the spirit of Thomas Sankara lives again. A spirit of self-reliance, of dignity, of African rebirth. A mason in Wahiguya put it in simple, powerful words. Before, we waited for them to come build for us. Now they will wait and watch what we build ourselves. Faso Mayabbo is not just a national project. It is a broadcast of African agency to the world. From Paris to Abidjan, from New York to Montreal, Burkina Faso in the diaspora watch as empty streets turn into paved avenues, barren plots transform into gardens, and forgotten villages rise as thriving hubs. And for those who cannot be there in person, the mission does not end. They send what they can, modest financial contributions across oceans and borders, to keep the cement mixing, the machines roaring, and the dream alive. This is not charity. It is solidarity. It is a nation building itself with its own hands and inviting its sons and daughters everywhere to join the work. Never before in the history of Burkina Faso has anything like this happened. And yet, international media remains silent. Cameras from the West watch with doubt, but the images are undeniable. Roads appearing where dust once ruled, cities breathing again. Still, the Western headlines refuse to tell this story. For them, Burkina Faso is only news when it is about insecurity, chaos, or fear. But that silence is nothing new. And it's why African media carries a responsibility to change the narrative, to show the truth of what is happening on the ground. Still, that's not our focus today. Our focus is what Captain Ibrahim Traoré has set in motion. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso is inching closer to the very vision Thomas Sankara once dreamt of. Faso Mayabbo is not a PR stunt. It is sweat. It is discipline. It is unity. And it stands in sharp contrast to nations still shackled by development loans. Loans that promise prosperity, but leave behind nothing but empty roads and broken dreams. Burkina Faso has flipped the script. It has turned the camera around. And now, the world is being forced to see what self-determination truly looks like, in ultra-clear resolution. The scale of this ambition is staggering. thousands of kilometers to pave, urban centers to revitalize, infrastructure that could serve generations to come. If this momentum continues, Faso Mayabbo may well become the blueprint for a continent weary of waiting for foreign saviors. But let's be clear, this is not just about roads and sidewalks. This is a test of unity, a test of discipline, a test of whether the spirit that ignited this revolution can endure. Some revolutions are fought with bullets, but Faso Mayabbo's revolution is different. It is fought with graters, cement mixers, and the bare hands of a people who refuse to sit idle while their nation waits. Every shovel, every brick is a signature on the contract of a new future. Burkina Faso is writing its destiny in broad daylight, and history is unfolding before our very eyes. The real question is no longer whether the world is watching, but whether the world can look away. Nothing like this has been seen in Burkina Faso since the era of Thomas Sankara. And yet, it is happening now. Not under a civilian government, but under a young military ruler who has shown an unshakable dedication to his duty and his people. That is why the citizens are resisting any return to civilian rule. Western media never fail to remind us that President Traoré refuses to hold an election. But here's what they never say. When Traoré himself considered stepping down just a few months ago, something extraordinary happened. Thousands of Burkinabe filled the municipal stadium in Ouagadougou. They didn't come to demand elections. They came to demand that he stay. They came to pledge their support for extending his transition period. It was not just a rally, it was historic. A nation, standing together, choosing its own path, no matter how much it defies the expectations of the outside world. It is rare, almost unheard of, for citizens in African nations to gather in mass, not to protest against their rulers, but to demand that they continue leading. In fact, in the last 2 decades, it has never happened. Yet in Burkina Faso, this is exactly what unfolded. And here's what makes it even more remarkable. The crowds were not only Burkinabe locals. Among them were activists and visitors from across the Sahel, neighbors who traveled across borders just to stand in solidarity. For those who claim Ibrahim Traoré forced or pressured his citizens to support him, this fact alone destroys that argument. He could never have influenced foreigners to join the call. People see with their own eyes. They have witnessed the roads being built, the unity being forged, the vision being realized, and the truth is undeniable. Traoré's example is spreading beyond Burkina Faso's borders. It's no surprise then that when Traoré stepped onto Ghanaian soil during the inauguration of their new president, the welcome he received was nothing short of magnificent. Crowds cheered not just for a man, but for what he represents: sovereignty, self-determination, and the possibility of a new Africa rising. The people, activists from within Burkina Faso and beyond its borders, came to support Traoré because they had seen his commitment with their own eyes. They had watched him dedicate himself to his country in a way few leaders ever have. Thousands filled the stadiums and streets, and yet, not a single Western media outlet carried the story. Why? The answer is simple, and it proves the point. Western media platforms are not neutral. They are tools used to control the narrative of African countries, bending stories to suit their interests. Imagine if the opposite had happened. If Burkinabe citizens had gathered to demand Traoré step down and return to civilian rule. Without question, it would have been breaking news. Headlines would have spread across every major Western outlet within hours. But that's not what happened. The truth is that Burkinabe citizens love their president, a military leader, and they don't want a civilian president. And that truth is dangerous, not to Burkina Faso, but to the Western idea of democracy. Because if the world sees that a military ruler is more loved, more trusted, and more effective than civilian politicians, then maybe democracy is not the flawless model the West claims it to be. In reality, it has never been about the system of government. Whether democracy, monarchy, or communism, what matters most is the leader. For Africans who have endured decades of suffering under so-called democratic governments, the real demand is clear: a strong and patriotic leader who will protect their interests above all else. And since the day he assumed power, President Ibrahim Traoré has done exactly that. So, Is it really surprising that his people would rise, not to overthrow him, but to demand he stay? In the days leading up to the rally, the stage was carefully set. Rasmani Sawadogo, chief coordinator of the Black African Defense League in Burkina Faso, sent out a clear message. It is together, in unity and solidarity, that we will build a better future for Burkina Faso. Let's stay strong. Let's stick together. But his words carried more than encouragement. They carried warning. Sawadogo reminded citizens that hostile forces would try to disrupt the gathering. He made it plain. Any attack against the rally would be treated as an attack on Captain Ibrahim Traoré himself, and by extension, an attack on the sovereign people of Burkina Faso. Betrayal, he said, would not be tolerated. The National Coordination of Citizens Watch Associations echoed the call. This was to be no ordinary demonstration. It was to be a historic and solemn moment, a turning point for the country. And then came the day itself. From Ouagadougou to the outer towns, thousands poured in. Burkinabe locals, activists, even visitors from other nations, all united under one banner of support for Traoré's administration. The African Initiative correspondent captured the atmosphere with striking words. Organizers of the rally believe that elections are unacceptable to maintain peace in the country. They are calling for changes to the constitution to fully liberate and revive Burkina Faso. From the podiums, the chants grew louder. We don't want to hear about another president. We don't want elections. These were not empty slogans. They were the cries of a people who had endured decades of betrayal. Since the death of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso had been trapped under leaders who cared more for themselves and for Western approval than for the people. But Traoré was different. In less than 2 years, he had set the nation on a new course. And nowhere was this more visible than in agriculture, the backbone of Burkina Faso's survival and sovereignty. According to Ghislaine Dabir, a member of the National Coordination of Citizens Watch Associations, the signs are undeniable. With the acquisition of tractors, plowing equipment, seeds, and agricultural inputs for the 2024 campaign, Burkina Faso is heading straight towards food self-sufficiency. For more than 60 years, we were told that crops like wheat could not be grown in Burkina Faso. But today, under Captain Ibrahim Traoré, our nation is counted among wheat-producing countries. This is nothing short of historic. And yet, wheat is only part of the story. In 2023, Traoré launched 2 landmark programs, Operation Agro-Pastoral Offensive and the Presidential Initiative for Food Self-Sufficiency. These were not symbolic projects. They were massive, coordinated efforts to transform Burkina Faso's agricultural backbone. In February 2024, the government launched the Emergency Project for Increasing Agricultural Production, backed by 38.4 million euros from the African Development Bank. The goal was clear: shield the country from the ripple effects of Russia's war in Ukraine and guarantee food security for every Burkinabe household. But Traoré didn't stop there. In March, while other leaders might have bought luxury cars and enjoyed the spoils of office, he made a very different choice. He spent 78 billion CFA francs on agricultural equipment, tractors, seeds, fertilizers, arming farmers with the tools to feed the nation. This relentless focus on agriculture is not accidental. It comes from Traoré's vision, a Burkina Faso that depends on no one else for food, a country where hunger is no longer a weapon of dependency. And beyond agriculture, he has turned his attention to the country's mineral wealth. In 2023, Traoré banned raw gold exports to take control of a sector long exploited by outsiders. He ordered the construction of a national gold refinery and a mining waste facility, projects designed not just to capture value, but to create jobs, industries, and opportunities for Burkinabe citizens. For the first time in decades, Burkina Faso's natural wealth is being redirected back to its people. Just like his mentor, Thomas Sankara, Traoré refused to receive a presidential salary and also cut down the salaries of Burkinabe politicians. According to him, it is not right for few people in the country to earn millions of CFA francs, while there are millions in the country struggling to afford the basic necessities of life. He didn't just speak about cutting down the salaries of politicians. He also said that the whole system needs to be balanced and corrected for the society to be stable. In terms of security, Traoré has been hard at work, acquiring weapons and military equipment, outfitting the soldiers, and collaborating with military from other countries including Russia and the Alliance of the Sahel to ensure that Burkina Faso is safe again. These and many more have been achieved since Traoré came to power. It's no wonder that in 2024, the World Governance Index placed Burkina Faso as one of the top best-governed countries in Africa, beating a significant number of others who are ruled by a civilian government. Indeed, results do not lie. President Traoré is proof that good governance doesn't have anything to do with the type of government. It's all about the leader. If the leader is good, whether it's a military government or a communist one, the people will be happy. There will be peace and development, and that is all that matters. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, drop a comment, and share.